It is so powerful to not only understand the designs of ourselves, but also the designs of the people that we love, because it helps us really just support them in a way that uniquely works for them and notice where we are frustrated simply because we don't understand them. It is such an amazing tool to bring us closer to the people that we love by just simply honoring and respecting our differences.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacey Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. Have you ever wondered how you can best utilize your specific energy at work, in relationships, in friendships? That is what we're going to dive into today based off of your human design. We have on human design expert, Erin Claire Jones. Erin Claire Jones has a knack for really breaking down the human design concepts into extremely digestible, tangible insights. So if you are not an expert in your human design and you really want to understand a little bit more about it, this is going to be your perfect entry episode into the human design world. And if you are a veteran or if you are deep in the human design like I am, really what we're going to start doing in this episode that I think is going to be so illuminating for you is using those different energy types, the ways that we've heard again and again and again, but how to utilize them with coworkers, in relationships, in everyday life dynamics, how to support the people around you based on their human design. And really, the goal that I love about this conversation and what we're going to learn here is that we can apply this to help everyone get into their zone of genius. That is such a goal, especially as a leader of a team, as someone that's, in charge of making sure everyone's moving forward together in a unified front. I'm always so interested in how do I get everyone in their zone of genius? I don't care how they get the things done. I want them to be in their truest, highest potential and then create from that space, right? So that is something I'm always thinking about working at various businesses and really trying to think about how do I support this team and each individual to be at their highest level while also getting everything done we need to get done. So if you are looking to bolster your relationships, if you're looking to get in more alignment, if you're looking to support the coworkers, the team, the people around you, this is going to be a really important episode. And Erin is launching her brand new book, How Do You Choose a Human Design Guide to What's Best for You at Work, in Love, and in Life. So that will be your even more comprehensive roadmap for any of these types we talk about today. If you don't have your human design chart, you can check out the show notes. We have a link, or you can go to her website, humandesignblueprint.com. And at the top, you can go over to free chart and put in your info there. You want to look up your type, your authority, and your strategy. Those are the three things we're going to focus on today. And this theme is so timely because if you guys heard last week's announcement, we are launching the Money Challenge on June 2nd. I'm so excited for this one because we're getting to pull back the lens on money. We're going to really de-pedestalize money as the thing that we're all chasing, even though it's very practical. We need it. We want it. People are going to manifest money in this challenge. Absolutely no doubt. One of our team members who is working with me on this challenge has already manifested a ton, even just helping create the challenge. So it is a really potent one. But how do we break money off the pedestal to actually live our truly authentic, abundant life? How do we redefine abundance in a way that is actually really fulfilling and more deeply rooted than just the financial material aspect of it? And the fun part is when you get into alignment, when you root into your true authentic abundance, the resources and monetary things start to come naturally as a byproduct. So we're kicking that off on June 2nd. If you haven't taken our money quiz to see what level of wealth consciousness you're at, take that. You get a PDF emailed to you that thing is stacked. We're going to be really using that to also reference when you're in the challenge. So take a peek at that. It's very illuminating on many levels. I'm excited to hear what levels you guys got and what we're going to be jumping into the challenge doing. And we are kicking off our challenge on May 31st with our global TBM. I'm calling this one a nature walk. I want to get you guys out in nature because I think there's no better abundance expander than nature herself. So grab your friends, go onto our magnetic meetup website where we have a big map and you can figure out, people in your town who are already organizing one. If you want to host one, people can find you there, connect with people in your city, in your pockets of community. There are TBMers literally all over the world. You would be shocked. I bet you there is someone else that is doing TBM in your city. So post that, take a walk with us in nature, set your intentions for this new challenge coming up, and really talk about what's going on in your TBM process. We're hosting one here in LA. I'm so excited. I love connecting with you guys. That'll be on May 31st, and stay tuned for more on that. One other thing that keeps pinging me to share with you guys is how I think about working with teams and coworkers. So, even when I was in charge of small teams in production, to running an entire casting department, to now running teams at TBM and other clients, one of the things that is like pulling me forward that feels like an undeniable truth is if you can get everyone to their zone of genius, to the place where they feel so excited by the work they're doing, that is where you're going to get the real magic out of someone. And in working with them, I think the ripple effect of that is tenfold. So I love this conversation about human design and energy types, and even thinking about authentic abundance. I think a lot of these themes will come up in the challenge as well, but really understanding what do I need to be in my best energy and what does a team member need to be in their best energy? How can I offer certain supports? As a leader, I'm always thinking like, okay, I don't care what your schedule is. I don't care how you get it done. I don't care if you're in a coffee shop. I don't care if you're on a beach somewhere. What is going to get you to the place where you are just excited and you're channeling and that is coming out into your work? That to me is like the end all be all hope that I could ever want for any team member or coworker. So think about that as you're going through this, whether you have coworkers or whether you're a team of one or whether you're managing a gigantic team. Think about that energy piece, right? Like how can we let go of, we're in this season of stripping, how can we let go of those old paradigm ways of being where we have to be in an office and all of these things? And I know some people are in corporate and you do have to be there until we get people to switch over to the new models. But anyways, I think that there is real value if you are in a position to honor it, even in little ways. That spark, that energy alignment, that retweaking. Is it you need a midday nature walk? Is it you need to do DIs at this time? Is it never having meetings before 2 p.m.? I don't know. But like think about those things that work for you and try to see where you can work with other people on what their energy alignments are. Okay, enjoy.
And now a word from our partners.
I get a lot of questions about my skincare routine. And even though that is always changing, one thing that I've been really consistent with that has been helping so much is the Bond Charge Red Light Mask. Who knew the secret to glowing youthful skin isn't a cream or a serum or a spa treatment, but actually light? Bond Charge's Red Light Mask uses a potent blend of red and near-infrared light therapy that works to boost your collagen, reduce wrinkles, fight breakouts, and give your skin the glow from within in just 10 minutes a day. Personally, I'm lucky if I get it in 3 times a week, but I notice a massive difference on the weeks that I do. Even from one session, my skin feels so much glowier and dewier afterwards. Red light therapy is backed by science to stimulate skin's natural healing process. It increases circulation, supports firmer, healthier skin without any harsh chemicals or invasive treatments. It's safe, it's painless, and it's incredibly effective for all types of skin. And as someone who's looking to support their skin as they age in the most natural and holistic way possible, getting the Bond Charge Red Light Mask was an absolute must. real results with no harsh chemicals, no downtime, no injections, just completely supporting the natural healing and collagen production of your skin. And for those of you who are noticing some fine lines added extra from looking down at our phones all the time, I know I'm so guilty of this. They actually have a specifically designed neck and chest mask as well that will help support it in the same way. You can actually use both at the same time for a full facial rejuvenation session. So if you'd like to try the Bond Charge Red Light Face Mask or their neck mask, you can use code MAGNETIC, all caps, MAGNETIC, for 15% off. Again, that's MAGNETIC, all caps, MAGNETIC, for 15% off. Go to bondcharge.com or check out the link in the show notes.
All right, on to the episode.
Erin Claire Jones, I am so excited to have you on Expanded today. I have been following you for years and years and years and years, and you have such a soothing way of introducing the complex system that is human design. And it was so fascinating reading your book.
Oh my God, did you read it?
Of course. I read all the books. If you guys are coming on the podcast, you've written a book, I want to have been in that depth. But it was so fascinating. I didn't know from your background and upbringing that you were in finance. You were in a very business world. You weren't always in this sort of more spiritual meets science of human design. So I kind of wanted to kick off with, what is your background and how did you get involved into human design?
Oh gosh, it's a crazy story. You know, I was in college and I wrote my thesis on impact-driven entrepreneurship. So I got kind of obsessed with entrepreneurship and founders specifically. And so I interviewed 90 founders around how they kind of built a social mission and how they did business. And it was honestly like so fun as a projector, just like sitting and like asking all the questions was a dream. And then I moved to New York City and I joined a fintech startup that was doing pretty crazy stuff. And I loved it. It was like so fun, but I also found myself becoming the kind of the person on the team that everybody was venting to about everything. And I also found myself like low-key obsessed about just like how people could work better together. I was like, God, these people are amazing. And yet like we're having so many interpersonal challenges and people are so frustrated. Like it just felt like we were kind of all holding ourselves back. And then I left and I was consulting for a number of startups in New York City, including my now husband's. He was not my husband then, but I was kind of in this startup journey, and then I went to a friend's house on the Lower East Side in 2015, and I sat next to a stranger, and that stranger asked to read my human design chart. And I had never heard of human design, but I was fascinated by like any system that could tell me about myself. So I was like, tell me everything.
Yes.
And he proceeded to give me the most resonant, specific reading I'd ever received. And I always say it was like equal parts relieving and confronting. Relieving in that I was like, oh my God, thank God somebody just gave words to my inner world. But confronting because I was living everything opposite of my design. And so it was just like such a moment of being like, God, is there really another way possible? Like I was in this entrepreneurial scene in New York City and I felt like just like the constant hustle was the only way. And he ended that conversation by saying, Erin, I think you're meant to do this. I think you're meant to share human design. And he invited me to study and build a business with him. And this was at a time in 2015 where human design was not popular. No one I knew what it was. And yet there was something about the invitation, about the recognition, which is so much about my design as a projector, that just felt really right. So it's funny looking back now, kind of coming up on my 10-year anniversary. I don't know if I ever would have chosen to study human design, not because it wasn't blowing my mind, but like I didn't really see it as a possibility for a career. So it's been a really wild journey since then with ups and downs and pivots galore, but that's how it all began.
So cool. I think that also gives so many people permission to have that pivot. That's one thing I really love about human design is that it does give you permission to lean deeper into those things that you really actually instinctively already know. We've been talking so much about authenticity and how it's so important every year, but even this year, it seems even more intense to get closer to your authenticity, closer to your truth. And I think one of the ways we can help give ourselves permission to do that is how we're living with our human design. I've just been obsessed with human design lately. My fiance really, every time he's like, where did you get that information? Human design? I'm like, yes, but it's true. Like, this is what you got to do.
I know, it really is. It just gives us so much permission to be ourselves in every part of our lives. And I just find it so useful, whether it's how we build our business or how we show up as parents or how we show up in friendship or how we choose the next career. Like, I think it just allows us to do things in a way that feels so authentic to us. And I feel like so often we're trying to emulate what has worked for other people, what has been successful for other people, and realize that's not actually our way. And human design gives us such specific practices and ways to find our way.
So what is your human design? Just so I know, probably our audience is, some people are very new. This is the first, they're like, okay, finally I get to learn what this really is about. And some people are like, I know what mine is, but I don't know what others are. And I think learning what others around you are is so vital into honoring their space and how they work and how they operate. I know knowing our teams has been so helpful. So what is your human design?
I'm a projector in human design, which means I am not here to be a consistent doer. I'm much better suited to be a leader, a teacher, a guide, to ask the right questions. My authority is emotional, which means I'm not meant to make fast decisions, but slow ones that come over time. And I'm a 6'2" profile. Those are the pieces I'll share.
So for someone who's brand new, I'm like, it's like all in my head, but I'm like, how do we make it as simple as possible? So for the types, that's probably like the most broad place to start. There's 5 different types. Can you give a little insight, just a quick tip on what each of those types are? And where do you recommend people check out what theirs is?
So you can look your design up for free at humandesignblueprint.com. You're going to see like a wild looking chart. Don't worry about making sense of it just yet, but you'll see a list of qualities, and one of those qualities will be type. So like you said, type I would say is the perfect starting point, and it's also just the first piece. There's so much more underneath it, so just know that as you're embarking on this journey. The 5 types are manifesting generators, projectors, reflectors, and manifestors. So we'll start with generators because that's you. Mm-hmm. So generators are people that have so much powerful energy to kind of build, create, make things happen when they feel genuinely excited by what they're doing. They have like a very steady, masterful, committed energy. I'm married to a generator. I love working with generators. Like, their passion is contagious and they like motivate me to keep going even when like I just don't have the energy anymore. So their excitement is very infectious. So one of the biggest lessons for generators is prioritizing their own satisfaction and fulfillment on a day-to-day basis, whether it's in work or friendship or whatever. Because the more lit up you are, the more you light up everyone around you. So prioritizing that is like the most generous thing you can do for everyone. And I would say one last piece here is that generators tend to have a big lesson to learn around boundaries. Because you are so naturally capable and resourceful, people can pile a lot of things onto you. And it can be easy for you to be like, I've got to hold it all. And so a big lesson for you is really learning how to be very selective with your no's, very courageous with your no's, and knowing that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And being kind of very selective about where you channel that precious energy.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Do you recognize those pieces within you?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think because I have so much energy for things that there's usually a point at which it switches where like, I'm like, okay, I've exhausted this energy and now I need to take a break, or I need to do this, or I need to switch gears. But because I can, I like will power through. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got a lot of volume done, but it totally like winds up draining me afterwards. So checking in on what is that turning point for me has been huge. And then also knowing like, okay, I want to start this document or this spreadsheet or whatever and start filling in the parts I'm really excited and can't wait to fill in. And then when I feel like, oh, I have to fill in these parts because I want it to be complete, that's when I know I need to like pause and pass it off.
Yeah, smart. The goal with a generator is like not to be 100% lit up by every single thing you do, because like we have things we have to do, like take out the garbage and like file taxes and other life things, but it's around having, a part of your day being dedicated to your satisfaction, having tasks every day that do light you up, because it will give you more energy to do everything else.
So good.
Then we've got manifesting generators, which have a lot of similarities to generators. They also have all this amazing capacity to build, create, make things happen. What makes them distinct is they tend to be quite multi-passionate creators. They tend to kind of pivot their energy between many things. These are my clients that are like, I'm a coach, I'm opening a dance studio, I'm starting a juice bar, like I'm maybe also in law school. Like they just can't really be contained, and they're not meant to be. And so often they've been made to feel like they're flaky, like they're scattered, like they're doing too much, when they actually need freshness and variety and novelty in their careers and lives. They need newness, and that's very natural to them. One other distinct piece for them is that they are very fast. They can make things happen faster than most people and can actually be disappointed in like the comparatively low capacity of other people because they're like others don't move as fast or do as much when they're just not meant to. So I think to your earlier point, it is so powerful to not only understand the designs of ourselves, but also the designs of the people that we love, because it helps us really just support them in a way that uniquely works for them and notice where we are frustrated simply because we don't understand them.
I have a few manifesting generators in my life who run 1,000,000 miles a minute. One of my dear friends, whenever we go on vacation with her, you have every second planned. And I'm like, I need to be in the moment to see if I'm like excited or lit up by it. And if it's a chill or a, more adventurous day, she will plan the entire thing. And so we just know we have to honor that's correct for her and she can live that and do that. And I need to pull back and figure out what I want to do that day too.
So smart, in those moments of being like, yeah, we're here together and we can also still honor our own flows. And I even tell a story in the book of like a manifesting generator couple. They were lit up by such separate things. So they both had to use up their energy, but their days would be like, I'm going to go do our own things and then kind of return to each other at the end of the day rejuvenated. So it's so helpful to just understand the people close to us. Then we've got projectors. I'm sure you know many. Mm-hmm. Projectors are natural leaders, guides, teachers, coaches, therapists, counselors, CEOs, like people that are really in the position of guiding others, stewarding other people's energy. They're so naturally wise about people, which is why they kind of often end up in that position. They're really good at kind of mastering a thing and choosing a thing, just like Lacey with manifestation, me with human design. As projectors, our energy really naturally ebbs and flows. We are not meant to kind of consistently be doing all day long, but in an ideal world, we build lots of space and breaks and rest into our day and kind of allow our energy to rest and then kind of surge back when it's there. But we live in a world of a lot of doers, so as projectors, one of our biggest shadows is not knowing when to stop, just continuing to go, go, go. And so it's really a big lesson to kind of give ourselves permission to be unproductive, to rest, to not fill our space with like another podcast, another course, another thing, but more just like, how can we just allow ourselves to be?
I think too, what I've noticed with a lot of projector friends is if they really give themselves that unapologetic rest, they come back with the vision, the idea, the this, the that, like their creativity, their channel gets bigger and bigger. But it's when they feel like, oh, I have to keep up is when it feels stunted or forced or pushed.
Yeah, and I think it is a real lesson to know, like, the more rested we are, the more inspired we are, the more effective we are, the more efficient we are. I have found the more I try to keep going, it's just diminishing returns. That rest, like you said perfectly, is what allows us to kind of come back. And, I'm a mother of 2 young kids, and like that shows up in parenting. Even taking 5 minutes to myself allows me to kind of show up as a more resourced mother and like more ready for what the moment calls for. But not allowing that just doesn't allow them to kind of experience my best.
What would you say we get this question a lot, that projectors are not maybe at their dream job or haven't set up their career in a way in which they can work that's best suited for their energy, or they're leaders of their company, but they're having to do so many things as a leader of their company. What advice would you have for a projector that's really craving the rest, but they don't see a path of how they can fit it into their schedule?
Well, there are 2 pieces that come up. One is that I know we haven't talked about strategy, but when we feel like genuinely invited in and recognized as projectors, it gives us a lot of energy. So one thing I would look at, where in your life do you feel the most recognized? And it could be like with one friend or one colleague or one family member, but I think spending time there can kind of remind you what it feels like to be energized in that really, really healthy way. And honestly, my recommendation is just to take moments of pause wherever you can get them. It might be like a 5-minute tea break. For me as like a mother right now, it's like I have 2 minutes alone before they come in, like whatever it is, but it can be really small. But I think just like carving out these little moments of rest can kind of remind you how impactful they can be, even if they're really small. And the delegation piece is hard. You can't always kind of delegate immediately, but I would think about as a first step as a projector, like, what are the skills that you really bring to the table? What are the things that you are the best at? And just becoming aware of like, what would you delegate if you could? And I feel like that awareness kind of paves the way to doing it eventually. Like one example practically is I run a human design business for a long time now, but honestly, I'm not good at a lot of business things. I love sharing human design. I love talking about human design. I love writing about human design. But when it comes to operations or business or strategy, like really not my wheelhouse. And so I think with time, I've really learned to release those things and not try to be great at them. Because when I try to be like, just no one really benefits from that. So really kind of getting clear on like where can you offer the most value and how can you slowly build that into your full-time thing. But it might take time. But just recognizing it, I think, is a really powerful first step.
It's almost like the bridge. You kind of see like, okay, this is what I'm working towards, and even manifesting it, saying, I want a position
Totally.
that gives me XYZ things.
And even as a generator, like another example would be I work with a lot of generators who are not lit up by their job. And the answer is not always to leave their job the next day because that might not be possible. They might have a lot of responsibilities. But one really powerful first step is how can I carve out a little time every week, like an hour here, an hour on the weekend to kind of just like do a thing that feels deeply satisfying and remind myself what it feels like to kind of be rewarded that way, to use my energy that way. And that kind of starts just magnetizing more and more your way. So these steps that might feel small, that might feel like they're not big, are paving the way in ways that you didn't expect. And I actually think one other piece I would add for projectors is because projectors are such lovers of systems. If there's like a modality or a system that you feel drawn to, it could be human design, it could be something else, just carving out a little bit more space to learn. I think as projectors, we kind of get so obsessed with the output when like we need to balance that output with so much input. And so finding ways to kind of create a little bit more space for that in your life.
I love that.
Then we've got manifestors. You know many manifestors?
Well, not many, but I have a few and they are distinct.
They are
a very distinct energy.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny because when I'm in like a room of people, manifestors are often the ones that I can recognize the most immediately, more so than any other type because there's just like an intensity to them. My 6-month-old is a manifestor and already I'm just like, whoa, she's so intense, in like such a fun way. But manifestors are very provocative people. They are here to kind of initiate and get things started. Their job is not to do all the doing to keep a thing alive, but to get the ball rolling. And so often manifestors burn out when they're like, I've got to sustain everything I started, when like their role is often just getting the thing off the ground. These are people that crave freedom to do what they want, when they want, how they want. So being in relationships that make them feel free, carving out a way of working ultimately that also makes them feel free. They have very spurty energy. So they might have a couple days, hours, weeks where they're totally on fire, making things happen, followed by a period of like seclusion and rest where they're really kind of giving themselves a beat. And so their job, like projectors, is not this consistent output, but really kind of these strong bursts of energy followed by rest. And similar to the point you made with projectors, when they allow rest, it gives them space for all this new inspiration to come up within them. And so rest is kind of the pathway to new ideas and new inspiration.
Yeah, I found because I work with a manifestor. We worked together for years. We've worked on side projects, all the things. And when we first started working together, I remember feeling frustrated with why isn't this done consistently? What about this thing? What about this thing? What's going on? And then over time, learning about her design, I was like, oh my gosh, this is why when she comes back and she has like the best idea that's totally game changer, that's super high value idea, is because she was following her rest cycle. And then learning, okay, we just need to communicate. When are you in that cycle and you need that time? And then I can pick up the slack here and then you can come back in and rejuvenate the entire system with this amazing idea. And then we can start executing. Learning that balance with the manifestor process was so good. And also really valuing their genius. Same with projector. I felt with both of them, it's so important to like really give them the nod for those ideas coming through because they are so powerful.
Totally. You speak to a really important point for manifestors, which is, a big part of their strategy is around keeping people in the loop. And so that means when they kind of go off to have a moment of rest or have time alone, just letting the people know who will be impacted. Like they can have a hard time if they just go off and do their things and don't tell people. And you can be like, what's going on? Like I'm expecting them to be available. But if they're just like, I'm going to be unavailable for a moment, I'll be back soon, it kind of puts everybody at ease. You also make a very good point that like projectors really thrive with words of affirmation. They do really well when people specifically acknowledge what their gifts are. And manifestors do really well when they're reminded of their impact. When like they just are like, oh, like they get how impactful my ideas are. They get how powerful I am in this way. So both types need it in different ways, but they both need it. So then we've got reflectors, the rarest type. These are people that are such sensitive beings, especially in their environment. They kind of take in and magnify so much of the energy that they're around. And so it is so important for them to be such ruthless curators of where they spend time and who they spend time with. And they're incredibly fluid. They will have days where they feel like generators, like manifesting generators, like projectors. So their job is not to choose one expression or be just one thing, but honor whatever feels like them that day, knowing it's all them. These are people that are meant to express themselves in very vast ways and not very fixed or contained ways.
Reflectors, I have so much empathy for because I feel like as a generator, I feel more empowered with the action. Whereas reflectors there's so much waiting for the lunar cycle and waiting for this and moving through this. Like there's so much that comes, so much discipline of their true authentic expression that's so different than society. Whereas like a little bit of the generator, like go, go, hustle, hustle, hustle is rewarded in our society today. Whereas like with reflectors or even projectors or manifestors, taking those breaks or having ebbs and flows or working in different styles isn't as rewarded. So it's like they have to be doubly unblocking those pieces that make them feel like they can't honor those parts of self.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that so many reflectors I sit with have felt like a little alien-like. Like I find that human design is such a permission-giving system for them because they're just like, I've spent my life kind of knowing that I operate differently than 99% of the world, but like not having the language for it and not being able to articulate it. And so human design offers this very specific framework of like, oh, these are all the ways. You know, reflectors are so wise and they just have this like perspective that can blow people away and they just see what's not working and how it can be fixed and improved and all the things. And so when they're in the right position, it's extraordinary. But I think that it takes practice. And I will say one thing that felt really important for me in the book is that I feel like so often reflectors are not really given very proactive things to do with their design. It's more about like allowing it to come, waiting a lunar cycle. But I do have an entire chapter focused on the book of like, how can they proactively create opportunities in their career? How can they proactively make themselves available for new communities and the right romantic partners? Because they can, and there are so many amazing strategies, one being just proactively putting themselves in spaces they love being in, cafes, cities, around entrepreneurs who they want to explore entrepreneurship, because they can really work with the fact that they magnify what they're around.
You know that feeling after a deep DI where your nervous system is calm, your energy feels magnetic, and you feel totally in alignment? That is how my skin feels after using these two products from Osea. At night, with a hot shower, I like to seal in my moisture with the Undaria Algae Body Butter and the Undaria Body Oil. It is game changer, makes my skin feel so luxurious. And it's not just a surface level hydration. It's clinically shown to improve elasticity and firm the skin over time. Plus, it smells like you just walked out of a spa. And then to top off my nightly skin routine, I like to use their Dream Night Cream. A lot of people ask me what my skincare routine is, drop the skincare routine. The daytime one switches often, but my nighttime one has been consistent for months, and I've been loving this cream. It is so nourishing. They use a bioretinol, so it visibly firms smooth skin, minimizes wrinkles, fine lines, and not only that, it doesn't cause sun sensitivity like a lot of other retinols out there. It's a very gentle plant-based retinol. It's also a cream that I will sometimes even use during the day because it is so insanely moisturizing. What I love most about Osea is that they're clean, vegan, and family-owned. They've been pioneers in seaweed-based skincare before it was trendy, and they truly understand how to use the most medicinal parts of the plant. Spring into your best skin this season by testing out Osea's skincare. Right now, we have a special discount for our listeners. You can get 10% off your first order site-wide with code MAGNETIC10 at OseaMalibu.com. Again, that code is MAGNETIC, all caps, MAGNETIC 10 at OSEAMalibu.com. Or check the link in the show notes. Okay, so now when it comes to your strategy, how you create opportunities, talk a little bit about, and that changes for each person. That's kind of what I was getting at with waiting for the lunar cycle. But I think this is really important, and I've utilized this so much when it comes to making decisions in business, in meetings, in what projects are aligned for me, what's not aligned for me. So what do those look like?
So the strategy is such a cool part of our chart. It really helps us know, like you said, how to find and create the right opportunities, and it gives us a lot of cool communication strategies. So you're a generator. You share a strategy with manifesting generators, and your strategy in human design is all about letting things come to you. You are not somebody who's meant to sit at home and be like, what is the next idea that I'm coming up with out of thin air? You are meant to see what shows up in your world and what sparks a natural gut response. And when you feel that tug and pull, you're meant to just follow it. And so that might mean that, like, you know, you see somebody on another podcast, you're lit up by them, you reach out to them. You know, you might see somebody across the room, you feel a tug, you go talk to them. You might have an idea, come up with a conversation or a student, and you're like, oh, I want to create this thing. You're just meant to wait for your gut to pull you in these really unexpected but pretty magical directions. So just to kind of be aware of the moments where you're like, this is what I should do, this is the space I'm trying to fill, versus this is what I feel naturally pulled towards. And on a more practical level, given that you're here to respond, it's really useful to have the people in your life, whether it's your fiance or your team, to give you specific things to respond to. Mm-hmm. If I'm to ask you a really open-ended question, like, what do you want to do next in your career? Like, you know, where do you want to do this thing? You might be like, gosh, Erin, there's so many possibilities. But if I'm to ask you more specifically, does this project feel like the right one to take on? Does the timing feel right to take it, to explore it? Like, you might find that there's a very visceral, immediate response. I can't tell you how often I sit with clients who will kind of talk around a decision for 20 minutes. And then I'm like, do you want to do it? They're like, no. And I'm like, decision-making can and should be that simple, but often we kind of are in a whole loop around why we should or should not do a certain thing. So I'm curious how and if that lands for you.
Oh my gosh, so much. Well, even that concept of not the open-ended questions, because my fiance would always ask me like, okay, what do you want for dinner? I'd be like, I don't know. I can't pull the idea from nothing. I need that something to respond to. So if he's like, well, do you want this restaurant or this restaurant? I'm like, this one. Then the answer becomes super, super clear. And even thinking about work, I think of how some people, when they have this strategy, they're like, oh, well, I'm never meant to reach out. I'm just supposed to sit there and like wait for things to happen to me. And that has not been my experience, because I'm constantly interacting with the world around me. I did a Instagram post about this yesterday. We were in a meeting. We were trying to think of the color palette and branding and visuals for an upcoming challenge. And I was like, guys, nothing's coming in, because they were like, what color should we do for the challenge? Like, what should the visuals be? And I was like, I have nothing. And then I looked around the room and I saw this deep green color. I don't know if you guys can see it on this water bottle. And I like saw the green color and I was like, yes, the only thing coming through is this deep green. And then we started talking about it and someone else sent another image and I'm like, yes. And then I went over to Pinterest, built out the whole mood board. This is the vision. And then like brought it down. But I had to respond to that one little piece in my environment. But if I had to come up with it from thin air, it wasn't coming.
Oh my gosh, I love that example. It's such a beautiful example of how it shows up in a day-to-day way. When it feels like nothing is coming, the answer is not to like sit at home and think harder. It's to open up your awareness and see what's showing up and how it makes you feel. So often I sit with clients that are so like have such tunnel vision around like, I want this promotion or I want to create this thing. And in doing so, they become blind to all these things that are showing up in their world and all these opportunities that if they like open their eyes a little bit more, they might see. And one thing to also be aware of as a generator or manifesting generator is the more you're using your energy in a satisfying way, the more magnetic you are. And so if it feels like nothing's coming, a solution for you is not like, again, to sit on your couch. It's like, what is the thing that I just love doing right now? Like, is it going to a yoga class? Is it going to Pilates? Is it like sitting with this friend who I love, working on this project? Like when you do that, you just start to pull more and more your way.
I was telling a friend who was looking for a job and they'd been applying, and they were just like, I feel stuck. I feel kind of hopeless. This is really frustrating. And I was like, instead of doing what you think you should do, constantly applying for jobs, why don't you just spend the rest of the week doing whatever lights you up? Get yourself back into the energy of your authenticity, your excitement, your joy. And I'd be curious what happens. And he reached out to me the next day. He was like, this person reached out to me about this amazing, incredible opportunity. So I'm having coffee with them. And I'm like, of course they did, because you went back to your own energy source, the thing that gives you the fuel, and that brought something to you.
Yes. I mean, such beautiful advice, and just yes. And it can be small, you know, it's like you might have another job and it's still like carving out some of that time makes such a difference. So then we got projectors. Projectors are here to be invited. You know, when it comes to the biggest opportunities in your life, you are really meant to have somebody just very specifically recognize and acknowledge you and be like, you are the one that's meant to do this. And, you know, part of our journey as projectors is making ourselves visible, is letting ourselves be seen so the right invitations can come. So it's not a passive strategy. None of them are. It can be very proactive. But what I would encourage is, even if you're applying for a job or pitching a thing, just checking in and like, do I feel genuinely recognized and acknowledged here? Do I feel like they really see me for my unique gifts and like beyond how much I can do? When I look back on the opportunities in my life, human design came to me with somebody being like, hey, you're meant to do this. Will you study with me? Another job that I ended up taking was like I hosted a retreat upstate in New York, and this guy came to the retreat. And afterwards, he's like, I want to have coffee. And he was like, I want you to help open this co-working space in New York City. I was like, you know nothing about me and what I've done. He's like, I don't care. You're the one. That's just like how opportunities have kind of continued to emerge in my life. So my job, again, to the theme of authenticity is like, how can I just keep showing up as myself in these spaces and trust that like invitations will often bring me in directions I could never have anticipated, but are better than what I could have ever imagined, because that's just been how it's shown up for me.
It makes me think too about we call them pings or like hits of intuition that come through for people who maybe they don't even know they're a projector, but are around projectors, because there have been so many times where I've seen projectors either on podcasts or on a clip or on something on social. And I'm like, I really want to reach out to them and do this collaboration or have them come on the podcast or have them do that. If I'm getting that message as a generator, then it's my duty to almost follow it, because that is the invitation for the projector, so they don't have to be the one to reach out.
Yeah, and I also, one thing that I was just teaching before this, and somebody was a projector and they really wanted to like get this job, and they were like, what do I do? And I was like, well, you apply to the job, you know, but it's often easier to kind of do it in a way where you're just like, I'm just going to share who I am and see how it feels. But like, what I reminded them of is that most people in the world are generators and manifesting generators that are here to respond. And so sometimes putting yourself out there in whatever way is possible, like gives them things to respond to. So you're watching somebody who's like, I'm bravely putting myself out there. And like, oh, you put yourself out there and then I got a gut response. So I think as projectors, that visibility is a good reminder that like we're giving people things to respond to and see if we're the right fit for them.
And I guess even if someone has a job posting application online and you apply, you were invited to apply. That is out there. That's the invitation, because we just hired a projector for content creation. And by having such a robust resume with very clear demonstration of her skills, like what she could do, all the different options, we were like, yes, 100%. So it's interesting how she was replying to the invitation to apply for this job that we posted, and then it was the perfect fit.
Yeah, and I think in a moment like that, the question I would just pose to her is like, when the offer comes, to just ask herself, do I really feel like they see my gifts clearly? Do I really feel acknowledged? And like, if so, then yes, move forward. Then we've got manifestors. Manifestors are the only type that are meant to initiate. This means that they're kind of waiting for some urge or ping to arise within them and just to follow it without needing to know where it will take them. So it's not about waiting for any external confirmation or invitation. It's basically just waiting for like a thing to arise. And they are very much meant to be the ones that make the first move. You know, whether it's dating or a job. And it doesn't mean they have to initiate every step along the way, but kind of how things begin for them most often is them kind of initiating and following that spark. The other part of their strategy, which we referenced briefly, is around keeping people in the loop. It is so tempting for manifestors to go off and do a thing on their own because they are very naturally independent. But if they do that without informing others, people can experience a lot of resistance. So one thing that might be annoying for manifestors and yet useful is to really kind of reflect on who will be impacted by their decisions, like your collaborator going off on their own for a little bit and just letting people know before they take action.
So good.
And the final one is a reflector. Often their strategy is kind of grouped in with authority around giving themselves a full month. The strategy that I talk about in the book is around planting themselves in the right spaces, like I said. So it's really around being in spaces they enjoy, whether it's living in a city that they feel that feels right, or going to a coffee shop, or moving tables at a restaurant, but being in the right space and kind of opening themselves to what opportunities arise. You know, I tell a story in the book of a reflector who really wanted to work at the UN, didn't really know a path to get there. And she, when we were working together, or I think right after, was a server at a wine bar. And she basically was working at a wine bar, and this patron came in and started asking her about her aspirations, and she shared about the UN, and this woman ran an NGO at the UN. And so like it was through that kind of just like serendipitous connection that she ended up going to work for her, and she worked there for 7 years. But when you look back at like all the opportunities in her life, they came from being in a space that felt good and just being very open to kind of whatever opportunities might arise there.
What would you say for someone who is, we're getting so many questions given what's going on in the economy and everything, you know, what should I do for my job? How should I make money? How am I supposed to make money in a way that's authentic to me? Where would someone look in their chart for information, little intel, insight for themselves?
I would actually look at the type and the strategy first. There are these layers where like you look in your open centers and the gates that are defined, but it gets us a little bit in our head. When we think about manifestors as examples, they're probably going to make money and feel the most compensated when they are in really innovative roles. And their role is around just finding new ways of doing things and like getting paid for that, like getting paid for disrupting how things are done. Like I've worked with so many manifestors who were in corporate settings where they saw all the things that could be improved and nobody was listening and they just burnt out very quickly. But then when they were in a position where like their role was changing the way things were done, that's when they kind of felt the best and it was the most sustainable. I always say as a generator, I'm curious how this shows up for you. Like for you, it's like getting paid to just do day-to-day stuff that really satisfies you, that allows you to kind of master a thing that you really enjoy. And so that could obviously be such a wide range. Like LeBron James is a generator, like becoming amazing at basketball. Oprah is a generator. Like, I mean, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think the more I gave myself permission to really pay attention to the things that I was like, had that full body excitement for, and what turned out when I did that. I remember when I first joined TBM, I was hired to produce the podcast and co-host the podcast, but I saw this one workshop. It was called the Daily Practice at the time. And I was like, oh, I could see how this could be way more robust and like explain it. And I was like, I'm just going to start updating this workshop. And I just started doing it. And since then I've had a hand in creating all of the workshops. So it became this other thing, this other side passion where I was like, wait, I see how we can refine it and make this more simple. And every year it's like, how do we make it better and better and better in that regard? But that has that excitement, that energy. There's never a time where I'm like, oh, I have to update the workshops. I'm like, I can't wait. I'm so excited to like bring new ideas in and figure out how to synthesize and talk to the community, like bringing all of these parts together that really get that engine going. But then being really brutally honest with myself I had a hard time with letting go of things that I knew didn't light me up, but I was nervous that I wouldn't be having like the final say or final approval on it. So it'd be like, well, I want to make sure if the episode's uploaded by someone else that it actually is live and all the copy looks right and all the things. But I wasn't excited by that. I just wanted it to be done correctly.
Yeah.
So I had to let go of that like perfectionism and micromanaging almost and be like, I trust the team. I trust that if there is an error, I will find it or someone in the community will find it. They'll let us know, but I don't have to like go in and do all the granular, like adding tags in the back end. I'm like, if I'm writing the workshop, I don't have time to be adding the tags.
Yeah, right. And becoming really aware of that because it's so tempting to kind of try to do all yourself. And you've also got a part of your design outside of being a generator. You are just very good at getting things done and you often can do things very well. And if you expect others to do things like you or as fast as you, similar to manifesting generators in many ways, it can be a little bit disappointing. So I would say a big lesson for you is having high standards, of course, but also being very generous in your expectations of how people will do things and not expecting them to kind of do it just like you.
Yeah. And I think also learning how to teach the things that you notice. I'm sure this is probably true, very true for manifestors as well, or even projectors. But in a team setting, you assume that everyone catches the things that you catch that might be wrong or could be improved or could be better. And instead of just assuming that, being like, oh, do you notice how this is here? Like we can actually make this better and do this. How can we communicate in a way that's empowering and not feeling like someone's in trouble because it doesn't look the way that I thought it should look?
Totally. And also, I just want to go back to the example you offered because I think it's a really great example of responding again. You were in the position and then you were like, oh, I just feel naturally drawn to improving and making these courses better. And then that just snowballed into so much more responsibility and involvement, evolution. And so that's very much what it looks like to follow a response. One of the stories I tell in the book is a woman reading the Wall Street Journal and reading an article and being like, oh my God, there's so much missing in this article. And she reached out directly to the editor and they ended up collaborating on a number of pieces. But that was very much, again, her reading, having a response. I have to reach out. And so responding is not about being passive. It's not about actually not initiating. It's about allowing that response to kind of just guide where you put your energy.
I've actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I've noticed that also with other people that I've worked with where when they take that initiative to follow and do the task that may be outside of their scope at first and run with it, the energy they infuse with it because they were the one who responded to it and did it themselves is so good, you're like, of course, yes, you should definitely keep doing this. That's a really good tip for anyone who's working within a company system. If you're looking to move up or get to the next level, like what is the thing you're genuinely lit up by that you can pull yourself into?
Well, it's such a great point because I think it's a good reminder for everybody that like it's so felt when the energy is coming from that place. And it's such a different thing when it's like obligatory, which we have many things that are, but when it's like, I must do this, I have to do this, I have the energy for it. That's so infectious and magnetic.
You've heard us talk about our Pathway membership, but what actually is it? It is an all-access membership where you can get every single workshop that we've ever created, all of our deep imaginings, which are our reprogramming audios, to help you manifest. You can access it on the desktop or in the TBM app on your phone directly. We, of course, have our foundational workshops, such as our How to Manifest workshop, which takes you step by step through this neural manifestation process to actually unblock, expand, and take aligned action to connect with your manifestations. Our How to Be Magnetic workshop, our Inner Child and Shadow workshops. And then, of course, we have a workshop if you are in a rut, if you're in a rock bottom, if you're in an up level, perhaps you need to set boundaries, maybe you want to focus specifically on the block of money or love. It is all in there. And then twice a year as a community, we gather for our challenges. Our challenges are one of the most effective parts of the process because you get accountability. It is really a handheld experience in how to work through whatever the theme of that year's challenge is. And now to my absolute favorite part of our membership, which I think in and of itself would be worth the entire weight of the membership if we just had this alone, our Deep Imagining library. This library encompasses over 60 neural reprogramming audio tracks. They're self-hypnosis tracks that will really support you in any step of this journey. If you're needing calming, nervous system regulation, unblocking with a specific test or trigger, going through a difficult time, processing a big emotion, or maybe you just want reinforcing, how to reinforce those neural pathways of confidence, abundance, self-worth, deservingness, and connection with your dream life. And not only that, if you go to the app, we just launched Deep Imagining playlists where we're grouping different themes of DIs together. So no matter what you're going through, you have something for you. And we're constantly dropping new playlists as well as brand new Deep Imaginings. And if you need more support in your process, you can go to our brand new video series, Channelings with Lacey, where she touches on the exact energetics that are going on right now in manifestation and how it may apply to your life. So obviously, I am a huge fan of this membership. The peace of mind I get from being able to have all the tools I need at my disposal, no matter where I'm at with my life, if shit's hitting the fan, if I'm feeling dysregulated, if I'm needing to come back to my center, if I'm needing to brainstorm or daydream or connect with what my vision for my future is, every single tool is in there to support me. And don't just take my word for it. We have thousands of testimonials of people who have had incredible success stories with these tools. So take the guesswork out of your manifestation process and get real tools that are going to give you real results. For podcast listeners only, you can use code EXPANDED, all caps EXPANDED, for 20% off your first month of the pathway. Join now and have your best year yet.
I would say as a manifesting generator, like, you know, you might not get paid for all the things, but I think that like you're going to probably attract the most money and the most opportunities when you really embrace your multidimensional self. Not choosing one career and sticking with it. It's like I'm choosing this offering and then I'm pivoting and then I'm creating this one. I'm starting this thing on the side and like not knowing how they all weave together and yet somehow they do. And so it's often kind of embracing that one makes them the most magnetic and kind of leads to the most success. I think projectors are really like well suited for roles where they're in the position of guide. And that can show up as like CEO, manager, that can show up as like therapist, counselor, that can show up as human design guide, teacher, whatever it is. But when they're in a role where they're like kind of seen as a leader, as a teacher, as somebody who has a lot of value just in their perspective and how they see, that's really when they're at their best. And that's kind of when the inspiration and energy can come instead of roles where they're expected to be on and available all day, every day. Again, that might be the path initially, but considering where you feel recognized in bigger ways and deeper ways is a really good kind of path out of that.
I've seen too with projectors having a freelance business or a consultancy business where they get to choose you get me for these deliverables or you get me for these hours, but I'm not beholden to one set system indefinitely. And they also get to choose how long they want to work with the client or what that scope looks like. Even for our content creator, I give her so much freedom. I'm like, the things that we want to accomplish, send them over when you feel like the vision is clear and it's dropped in for you. I make sure to really prop her up in that way because I know whenever she has the space to go create whatever day of the week or whatever it lands, it's so good. I'm just like, yes, this is amazing.
And she's a projector. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's also another good reminder of like you're offering their recognition. Like I think something we don't talk about enough as projectors is like when somebody offers that specific acknowledgement, I trust you. I think you're so amazing at this. I love the way that you did this. It gives us so much energy, And so I think for you taking the time to offer that affirmation, that acknowledgement can make such a difference, even if you don't need that acknowledgement. Even if like that doesn't make a difference for you, it makes such a difference for projectors.
So good to know.
And then for reflectors, honestly, where they tend to do the best is when they are in the position of like an evaluator, where their role is objectively assessing where things are and how it can change. I actually work with like a weird amount of reflectors that are like directors of HR. That seems to like be a landing place for them. But similar to projectors, I work with a lot of reflectors that are consultants, where they can like kind of set their own schedule of like, I'm coming in to offer this, and I tell a story in the book of somebody who worked full-time at a company, got pulled into so many different roles and really found her flow and got paid the most when she kind of left and started consulting on like the one specific aspect that she really felt like she had the most wisdom to offer, and then kind of grew a consulting practice from there.
When working with the different types, like even the 5 main types, what would be one thing if you were a teammate to any of them would be a good thing to ask yourself about? Give them the space to do this or ask them to do this. For projectors, giving them, like when you see them in their genius and when they're giving them, give them that acknowledgement. What would be some things for the other types that, if you're on a team with different people, I love adding human design in team settings. We're not 100% there, but I'm really trying to instill in every single project, everything I work on, I'm like, can we honor the ebb and flow and the energy used in the human design, because it makes the product so much better at the end of the day. And I just hope every company can get there at some point in time. I know we're not there yet, but what is something, if you have these team members on that have different types, what questions should you ask them to help them along their path too?
I love that question. One other one I would add for projectors is it's really good to invite in their perspective. You're in a meeting and to kind of like single them out and be like, what do you think? What do you see? Like feeling like really valued for our insights is so big. I would say for generators, and I'm curious how this lands for you, is because they can often get caught in a position where they're trying to kind of do everything for everybody and kind of like squashing their own desires. It can feel incredibly healing to feel like their desires are like acknowledged and important. And so really having a conversation with the generators on your team to be like, what are the pieces of your work that feel the most satisfying? What are the things that feel the most fulfilling, the most energizing? And what are the things that are the most draining, depleting? And like, can we work towards a future where we can like get those things off your plate?
I've definitely had those conversations with Lacey where she'll check in with me on that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank goodness. And she did this early on in working with TBM where I was so thankful for that permission, because I probably was not going to be the one to say, hey, all this stuff I really is so draining me. Now I could years later and having unblocked so much. But at that time early on, I wanted to take on more, make a good impression, do what I could, all of that stuff. So without that permission from her, I probably would have just been slogging more and more on.
Yeah, and I mean, such a projector in their wisdom doing that, and I tell a story in a book of 2 generators who are married, and their biggest love language was just recognizing when the other person needed time to do the thing they loved, or it'd be like, I can see you need to go work on the yard, go work on the yard, or I can see you need to go work on your novel, go work on your novel, and that was just the biggest, thank you. I would say as a manifesting generator, one thing I would say for them is really getting clear with them on what excites them most right now. I feel often for manifesting generators, they're expected to stay the same. This thing was exciting 6 months ago. It should be exciting now. But I think really reframing that to be what's bringing you life right now? And what's the thing that maybe once felt exciting and no longer does? So kind of having that conversation. And then I would say for both generators and manifesting generators, as we talked about, giving them specific options, asking them questions when kind of making decisions, not presenting an open-ended question and expecting a response, but giving them something specific to respond to. Manifestors, What comes up is these people need freedom. So like having a conversation with them around like, how could we make you feel more free? Maybe it's not having meetings every day. Maybe it's having one meeting at the top of the week. Maybe it's every other week. I don't know, being able to kind of work from somewhere else. What can we do to really support you in honoring your cycles and also like giving you freedom? Because that's often when they're at their best. And I feel like that's probably rarely a conversation that's initiated by other people.
So rare. I'm even thinking of like corporate world. That's probably never a conversation that's brought up for them.
Right. But I think to your point, when we honor each other's designs, whether it's at work or at home, we're getting the best out of them. I know that you'll have the most impact when you feel free, when you actually allow inspiration to come organically and don't force it.
It builds trust too. I can let you go off, do your thing. And when you come back, you're going to be even more excited, even more purpose driven. And it's that alignment piece. I feel like if everyone can come to the table from their highest level of alignment and integration and really see their value in a deep way, that's where success follows. That's where abundance follows, that piece of alignment.
Yes, 100%. And then for reflectors, one, definitely asking their perspective, being in a meeting and be like, what do you see? Like that's often such an opening because they see so much. But, you know, it's similar in some ways to what I shared for manifestors is like, they're very cyclical. They're going to have days where they want to be around others, day where they want to be alone. So I think creating a little bit more flexibility in their day to day where like they can come into the office, they can work from a coffee shop, they can go work from home, allowing them to kind of ebb and flow with what feels right that day instead of expecting the same thing to transpire every single day.
Erin, what is your just vision or hope with human design and where we can get to as a society?
Human design is still very nascent. When I began, it was so nascent, but now it's so much more popular, but it's still early. So my hope, and specifically with this book, is that like human design can like really cross the chasm, reach the mainstream in a way that we haven't before. And the way that I present it in the book is very much not like, this is a belief system that you have to adopt, but more like, this is a really cool framework to think about who you are, how you make decisions, how you structure your day-to-day, what gems can you take from it to find more flow in your life. And so I think my vision, my desire, my hope is that it is able to reach a much broader audience and give more people permission to parent, do business, work, show up in relationships in a way that feels really authentic to them. And I think on like a bit of a smaller vision, but equally important, is that my hope with the book is that people don't only read about their own designs, but open up the chapters about their partners and their colleagues and their kids. Because I will say every time I open up the chapter about generators and relationships, I'm like, oh my God, I could do this better for my husband. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I've been doing this. It's revelatory every time. It is such an amazing tool to bring us closer to the people that we love by just simply honoring and respecting our differences.
Oh my gosh, so true. Even we didn't even get to go into it today, but on authority that we talked about at the beginning, you know, whether you're sacral, emotional, splenic, self-projected, ego, mental, or none, which you dive so beautifully into the book with, but I'm sacral. So my gut decisions come right from my gut. Like I know yes and no. And if I feel confused, then I have talked myself out of it. But my fiance, he's also a generator, also wait to respond, but he's emotional. I'm like, why don't you just know? Like, it's obvious, you know, come on, give me the answer. But he really does need to move through that wave. And then it's just like a soft whisper after. It's like, yeah, okay, this is the thing. But I have to hold space for him for it because we operate in two different ways. I think that's one of the biggest blessings and gifts with human design is it has a framework for you to honor the individual, to not want to put everyone in the same box, to not judge or get frustrated with anyone because they are different or they operate different. It's actually perfectly, authentically designed for them. And if we can honor those differences of how they show up, how they use your energy, how they spend their time, that actually is going to have the highest success for all. And that is just mind-boggling.
And it's so specific in a way that I haven't found in other systems. It just like so specifically outlines our operating system and how we can do life in a way that works for us, in a way that's just like, yeah, that is who I am. It's so fun as a mom to look at two daughters with designs that are so different than mine and be like, wow, I have no expectation that you'll be anything like me. These are all the ways that I can, you know, support you on your path in ways that maybe I wouldn't have needed.
Where can people find the book? Where can they find your work? I know you also have the blueprints. Tell everyone about that too.
So the book you can get at humandesignblueprint.com/preorder-book. And then I also sell guides, which are basically hyper-personalized guides all about your design. Just so you know how custom they are. There are 400,000 variations of them. They're so personalized to you. And we have a discount code magnetic. I also have a coaching certification. If you're like, teach me all the things, I want to learn the system, then
Your sessions are unreal.
And sessions, right. I know. We've done lots of sessions together.
Yeah.
Sessions are so fun. And then on Instagram, I'm at Erin Claire Jones and Human Design Blueprint.
Thank you so much, Erin. This was incredible. The book is amazing. It's honestly so good. I've been immersed in human design for years now, and I still learned so much from this book. And it's so digestible for someone brand new. I can give it to someone who doesn't know about it, and they can take as much value from it as well. So check it out. Get the book. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. We are so excited to kick off our money challenge on June 2nd. If you haven't joined the pathway yet, you just need to be a member and you will get full access to that and all of our other workshops, our 70 plus deep imaginings, all of the good things. If you are still in a little bit of the hypnotic trance or excitement after listening to this episode, and you want to really get in touch with your energy and what feels good, I recommend doing the magnetic self DI or the embodied DI. Those two really like recalibrate my energy. I'm like, how do I feel? What do I need? Oh, this is what it feels like to be embodied in myself. Those two are so, so huge. So if you want a little neural reprogramming, rewiring, or pick me up at the end of this episode, just pop over to the app and put those on.